Going back to the issue that's going on in Syria at the moment, how do you think that's going to resolve itself? And can you also explain this to me? Why was it that the West was so keen to assist in the conflict and uprising in Libya, but they're just not doing anything in Syria? What's that all about?
It's a different situation in Libya militarily, because in that situation you had rebels who held a certain part of the country, and you had the government forces which held another part of the country. There was an armoured tank column going up towards Benghazi, which was going to obliterate them, and it could be easily knocked out, and NATO decided that it would be knocked out, and it was. It's not that simple in Syria. It's a very complex situation there, with different groups holding different areas. The opposition itself is not very coordinated. I mean, when I was talking to people in the pre-Syrian army, but there are very different brands of people. There are Salafis who are very militant and Muslim, and there are also there are student organizations against the government which are much more broad-minded. There are army officers against the government who are doing it for other reasons. So it's not a coordinated thing. And the other thing is that you don't really have an area which is held by the opposition. But the biggest stumbling block is Russia's opposition to any intervention, and that would cause problems if the West intervened and Russia was not on board. This is why they've been trying to get the United Nations to have some sort of an agreement on this, which hasn't been forced.
Also, that I can't remember quite the Arab Association. I can't remember the name of it. They did actually call for intervention in Libya, but they haven't done so in relation to Syria. Is that right?
That's true, but they have condemned Syria, and there's an awful lot of arms smuggling going on. A lot of the arms coming up from Saudi Arabia officially, and Jordan. And it's interesting, when I was in Jordan, I had people very low profile because I wasn't allowed to report there. I actually slipped in as a tourist. Most of the reporters are covering from Beirut or Turkey, and one of the reasons I wanted to report.
Well, again, I have to pause you. I'm sorry. I don't know what the reason is. It's perhaps a geographical thing, but you were beginning to chop up there. Can I just ask again to ensure to maximise broadband? Please, if you're not speaking, mute your microphone.
Can I just
and please, whoever is just calling me, do not call me. If I'm going to bring you in, I bring you in. Don't waste your time calling me. Thunder, we'll go to you, and then I'm going to take Klingshaw's question.
Yeah, the one thing I never really understood about Syria is how the opposition got armed in the first place. Because the opposition, seems that they're all armed with it's small arms. But they must have had a huge bleed-in of small arms from somewhere. And it's difficult to see who actually armed them all. So it seems to be rebels armed with small arms, and then the Syrian government will come in with heavy weaponry of one sort or another. But it's playing whack-a-mole there.
Okay, Peter, so do you want to come back on that, Peter, before we go to Klingshaw?
And I never understood how they got armed.
Yeah, a lot of the arms, of course, came from army deserters. A lot of the people who made up the pre-Syrian army are ex-Syrian army soldiers and officers who just couldn't stand what Assad was doing, so they took arms against him. But as I said, there's a lot of arms smuggling going on. It's a very long border. In Jordan, for example, there's a lot of arms coming in from Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries.
Is the arms smuggling going on for financial reasons? In other words, are the people in Syria actually buying these arms, or are they just being essentially given to the Syrians by various other parties? Whatever purpose.
There are people who are financing it who, I mean, this is as far as I know, and my knowledge of it probably doesn't go as deep as people who have been based out there, but there are, I suppose you might call them philanthropists, the people who have got the money and are willing to fund this, and the arms are going in that way. But a lot of this I was not told, so it's difficult for me to know. I do know some of the things that these philanthropists are doing legitimately in helping refugees and so on, and I've made the assumption that a lot of the arms are coming from the same people. But the people who are volunteering to go in and fight in Syria are not all Syrians. There's a lot of Jordanians going in and a lot of Saudis going in, and a lot of them are doing this for religious reasons, and this is kind of worrying. But they're bringing the arms with them, and I imagine the same thing's going on in Lebanon and Turkey, where I didn't go. Yeah.
It was certainly very unsettling and very disappointing that after the hope of the Arab Spring that something better would replace the governments that were overthrown, to see Egypt electing the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah.
I think, Thunder, this may actually relate to Klingshaw's question. So can I invite Klingshaw to comment? I may have got it wrong, but from the message he sent me, it may be on point. Klingshaw.
Indeed. Before I begin, I want to point out that I am ill at the moment, so if I suddenly am not on the microphone, I've run off to be ill. First of all, greetings from the Gin and Tonic Show, your Islam-centric sister, and greetings, Peter. You're a legend, mate, and Australia is enriched by your presence. Before I begin, a facetious
You can't
note.
come on and brown-nose one of the guests without brown-nosing all of us.
Well,
You know
I
the rules,
just did.
Klingshaw.
I just did. What are you going to do about it, DP?
I'm going to kick you.
Well, all right, you could remove me from the conversation, but that would just be like cheating and mean-spirited.
It would be petty and small-minded, but I am.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would, DP.
Let's cut to the chase. Get on with it.
All right. I just want to begin on a facetious note, particularly to Thunderfoot. Are you aware that the newest threat of the world is secular supremacist extremists? And you are one of the group leaders, as am I. Dawa Films.
That's
Dawa
nothing.
Films. Oh my lord! Let's not go. No, I'm not allowing this conversation to.
All right. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Let's move on to your next point.
All right.
I'm not having Dawa Films discussed.
That's
End
the
of.
world accusations that are
It's a
being made.
waste of time. Let's move on.
Sorry. I couldn't resist. Okay, so what I really wanted to know is, particularly from Peter, is what is your view of Muslims and Islam, and more particularly, are you familiar with, and if so, what is your views on Muslim creationism? I know you had a brush with Amanakhan, or whatever her name was, so I wonder what your views are in this respect. But open to
yeah. I don't view Muslim creationists any different to Christian creationists. As far as I'm concerned, they're all, in the same melting pot, and they're all using the same arguments. And I'm really pleased that we have these Muslim creationists, because they're a great foil. Because every time I get a Christian creationist arguing that the Bible says this and therefore it's not true, I say, yeah, but the Quran says the same thing. And then, yeah, but the Bible's got prophecies in it which came true. I say, well, so does the Quran. You don't need to then go delve into any argument. You just say, well, you believe this, well, so do these other guys, and the fact that they all hate each other is a great argument against the whole thing. No, so I don't.
I should throw in that, having read the Bhagavad Gita, I was careful to make sure to remember certain passages, some really excellent quotes, just for moments like this, of prophecies that came true and so on.
I'm just going to quickly recommend a book here by Tanner Edist, who's one of those brights. What do they call it? Is it bright? Those scientists, rationalist, atheists, I don't know. Anyway, and he's a Turkish atheist, secularist, and he wrote a book about essentially Muslim creationism, and particularly with Turkey, which is apart from perhaps Albania or Bosnia, one of the most advanced and progressive Muslim societies in the world. And in the 80s, after a right-wing government took over, the Turkish government actually went to the Institute for Creation Research in America, and actually went to them and borrowed from them, authorized from them, a lot of materials which they then implemented into the schooling system. So now they are officially teaching these American Protestant creationist materials in Turkey. and now we have the rise of Harun Yahya and this huge Turkish Muslim creationist movement, which also incorporates like Illuminati conspiracy theories and Freemason conspiracy theories, which is everywhere. It's very prevalent. It's all over the Muslim world. It's I don't know where they get their funding from, and it's also very common in the intelligentsia of the Muslim world. It is creationism is the norm in the intelligentsia of the Muslim world, if I read this book correctly.
It's a very nice lecture. Is there a question at the end of it?
Yes. Well, what I mean, this is nothing like what we have here in the so-called West. I mean, here the actual intelligentsia, the scientists of the Muslim world, they believe in this stuff. It's being taught in all their schools. It's all over their society. Whereas here, creationism is fringe. I mean, who is addressing this? Who is debunking this? Where are the equivalents of Aaron Ra and Thunderfoot debunking Muslim creationism?
Okay, we've finally got to the question. Thank you very much, Crenshaw. I'll ask the panel to address that, but I'm going to remove you and move on. Who wants to pick up on Clenshaw's point?
I would think that the Muslim version. I would think that the Muslim version of Thunder and I would either be hanging from a crane or at the bottom of a pit.
Exactly. Right. I mean, this is what I was about to say. Is there is a slight difference between Muslim creationists and Christian creationists is one won't burn you at the stake anymore. But I mean, it does highlight the fact that institutional religion is a far more damaging manifestation.
Hello. Hi.
One moment.
Hi.
One moment. We'll come to you. Can I just invite you to mute your microphone for a moment, please?
Certainly.
Thank you. Do carry on, Thunder.
And like you were saying, DPR, I mean, just asking whether God exists can get you 2 years in jail in one of the most progressive and most populous Islamic countries on the planet.
2.5 years, actually, but yeah.
I got a great idea for that. Why don't we have a whole bunch of atheists get together and just donate like a month of our time, and several of us can go down and serve 1 month each to make up this guy's 2.5 years. I think that would be a great charity.
Please, Aaron.
Okay, I'm done.
I know I ruined your moment. I do apologise.
You do that all the time.
I'll just step in here and say one of the interesting things about this resurgence of Muslim intolerance, because the interesting thing is Muslims used to be the most tolerant of religions. They had Jewish communities, Christian communities. When they invaded Spain, the minority of religions were pleased to see them because they knew they wouldn't be persecuted under Muslim Islam. And yet now it's the most intolerant religion. And we're getting these Islamic governments turning up. Turkey is an example. It's happening in Morocco. And I'm fairly sure it will happen in Syria when Assad is overthrown, that there will be some form of Islamic government, even if it's a mild one, because the pervasion of religion there is so, it's all pervasive. Everybody believes, and you're not allowed not to believe. So there will be some form of religious government and religious diktats in schools. It's very worrying, but it's happening also in Israel, as I understand it. But talking about Turkey, I've just had someone contact me who's now making a Turkish translation of the Made Easy series, and has just put up 3 Turkish translations of it. And I do get a lot of Turkish people contacting me, so I know there is a movement out there against this, but of course it's being suppressed. There's very little, as Aaron said.
I mean, it's a little bit like Canute trying to hold back the tide in a way, isn't it? That's the way I see it. It's an effort, but it's pretty insubstantial at the moment.
Yeah, sometimes you have to I hate to say it, you let these things run their course, because when people's blood is up and when they're really passionate about something, you're not going to get through to them. And take Iran as an example. After the 1979 revolution, we had an Islamic government there. But after about 5 or 6 years or 10 years of that Islamic government, people were so sick and tired of it that they wanted to go back. And there's a big movement of young people in Iran who are very much against this domination of the religious. And I think you sometimes, if you let it run its course and then pick up when people start getting very. The word in Australian is toey, but when they start getting frustrated with the government, that's the time when things will start to happen.
I would like to move on if I may. Thunder, I'll come. Thunder, just give me a second. I'll come back to you. Can I just remind people, if you would like to join the discussion, send a contact request through Skype, which you can do by clicking on the Skype link above the banner. I've got, I think, 2 or 3 people lined up, and I can see another contact request coming in. We've got another 20 minutes, but we always are overrun. We will try and get to you. Thunder quickly, and then I'm going to move on to the next caller.
Yeah, I was just about to say that the Iranians that I've spoken to think that there is enough people with an investment in the status quo that the only way that you're going to get change in Iran is by revolution. That there isn't a incremental path out of this. That it's and you sort of see the sort of preliminary eruptions happening. A couple of years, it might have only been last year, they had these, they got pretty near to revolution. With people opposing the secret police on the streets and fairly brazen stuff like that.